Where Dave Hawkins made a difference, I think, is he's always kind of a mellow, gentlemanly, soft-spoken, passionate guy. And those are some things, aren't always in the same package. But he got your trust. And when things are changing, you need to have credibility. You need to get people's trust. And he had that ability. He would bring you along. He would pull you through rather than push you out.
History has recorded that Dave Hawkins has made great contributions at Michigan State University, that he's made great contributions in animal science with the purebred breeding herds. His involvement in the industry, the greatest contributions when it comes right down to it is the impact that he's had on young people. And many of them, not just from this country, but countries around the world. Whether they're young people that he touched in his travels or whether they had him there at the university, it's the, I guess, the wisdom that he's been able to pass on to those folks.
Dr. Hawkins is a great person. He's as honest a gentleman, and he can get along with anybody. Always sees the bright side in anything. He's just a positive role model.
When you were there at school or then after school, he remained a positive influence. You could go to him with a question if you thought, which direction do we need to go here? And he would always have a positive word and said, hey, you need to work through it. You know, this is the point. So there were many opportunities that he gave direction to our family and to many other families that put us on mainly why we're involved in the Angus breed today.
What was always interesting about going to Dave is I'd go to ask him a question or ask for help, and he would never actually give me the advice. It was always asking the right questions to get me to think about it on my own, and then providing the experiences for me to actually go do some of those things that we were talking about.
I first remember knowing Dr. Hawkins when I served on the National Junior Angus Board in 1980 to 1982. And I remember that his daughters, Lisa and Jennifer, were little girls at the time. They were probably 10 years or more younger than I am. And so I saw him both as a livestock show judge and a university professor and a dad. And I can remember those little girls coming to the show and them working as a family, and Kathleen being there, and they were really, it was his role in teaching in a completely different way than you would have seen in classwork or in a livestock show arena giving reasons. And I think the thing that ties it all together is that in every instance, Dr. Hawkins really cares. And he cares about his student, whether it be his little daughter who's 10 years old, or a student in his class, or a breeder maybe who's asked him for advice. Dr. Hawkins really not only cares about the person and he cares about their cattle, but he cares about the outcome and helping them to find the success that they're looking for.
First off, the very first time I met Dave, I was not only the significant other of his daughter, but I was also a graduate student presenting my first abstract at a scientific meeting. And the first time we met, he was in the audience. And I had to say I was a little bit nervous. But in the end, after the paper and when we met and had lunch, I realized that I had no reason to be nervous, because he's never the person that would be intimidating, and that I almost laughed at myself at how nervous I was, because once I got to know Dave, that I had absolutely no reason to be nervous.
We have people that are very successful in the meats industry, all phases of the livestock industry, the livestock press. All of those people, I think, would attribute a great amount of their success to Dave's influence throughout their careers.
I would count his influence to be as strong as anybody other than my parents in my life. He's served as a mentor, a life mentor, a career mentor, and definitely an inspiration for me as well.
I grew up going to the Junior Nationals, and probably the one Junior National that impacted my life the most was in 1999 when the Junior National was being held at Michigan State University. It was my first time meeting Dave, Dr. Hawkins, and I caught wind during the week that there were Hereford and Angus cattle on campus, and to a 10-year-old, that was a combination I had never heard of before, but certainly liked the sounds of it. And it was on the way home that I told my parents when I was old enough I was going to be a Spartan.
He's been to all the continents and judged cattle in Europe and South America and Australia. He's seen different types and trends of cattle over the years. Has a lot of perspective on where the beef industry's been and where it's going, so someone that can offer a lot of advice from that standpoint.
Internationally, Dave is one that, within the university, is one that's been part of their university student trips. And so he would be part of the group that when they would plan a trip to the UK or certainly to Europe, he would start organizing that. The other thing so on the big picture, he is very important in giving students the opportunity to see parts of the world. The other thing that Dave was able to do and also generate interest in is bringing cattle students to the University of East Lansing, Michigan from Argentina, Australia, Alberta. And so not only did it give those kids a good opportunity with what I believe is one of the top beef cattle science universities in the world, but it also gave Michigan students that really a smaller beef cattle type of industry opportunity to not only work with, to play with, to grow with, to be educated with students around the world that are very much beef cattle type of folks.
Huge area of impact is just Dave's influence on the genetic program at Michigan State University, and those genetics not only that had a huge impact here in the U.S. but globally. And I don't know the number of countries that MSU prefix cattle have been exported into, and semen and embryos and such. But I know the global impact of the decisions he made there in East Lansing about the genetic program at the university. Those decisions were benefited by many around the country and around the world.
David's had a great impact on a lot of young people's lives through his teaching experience, through the purebred livestock that he's so handily developed at Michigan State, and the reputation that Michigan State holds in the industry is really because of Dave Hawkins' guiding hand.
The term that comes to mind, first of all, would be a visionary in terms of just his ability to create what I consider one of the top beef research facilities, a cow-calf purebred operation there at Michigan State University that I had the opportunity to be a part of.
I think his legacy will just simply be the number of young people that have gone on and the achievements then, the careers that they've been built. It takes guys like Dave Hawkins to give them that foundation at that age, but everybody grows up, they go on to in whatever field and endeavors that they do, even if it's not even in animal agriculture, but he just makes them better people. And I think if I was to say two things about Dave, he's such a caring guy and he makes people better.
It's always interesting. Every time I see him, the first thing he asks is, how's my family doing? And so he's a friend and an educator, and I think that's how everyone will remember him within our industry.
You know, in this day of Facebook and Twitter and those technologies, Dave was our social network. He was one of those leaders that we could count on that was instrumental in evolving our industry, teaching us things about profitability and how to remain in business. And he was one of the great developers of young leaders of our business.
When history reflects back on Dave Hawkins, it will be him as a great individual that impacted not only certain people in the business, but the entire industry, but was a class act in everything that he did.
He was the pivot. He was the one that allowed us to know the history and all that came before. And he did a masterful job, and he was so passionate about it all. And he understood that all of us stood on each other's shoulders. And he challenged those young people to do the same, to be an example, to do the work, to not dog it.
The desire that Dave had with Kathleen and their two daughters to be engaged in this industry, not just be a teacher, but to be totally engaged, to be involved in industry organizations, whether it was breed associations or national cattlemen's associations. It's been a lifetime of dedication to the industry, to give back, to provide what wisdom they can, to participate, to play a role. And he has always been of the most consistent, personable well-liked person with great character of anybody that I could compare him to. And to me, that's the sign of a pretty remarkable individual.